Hey everybody, welcome to the Murder Reviews and another episode of Build the Gun. In this episode, we are taking the Lancer Tactical CQBR that I reviewed a little while ago, and we are going to build this gun out and make it a little bit of new, a little bit of old, and it's going to be a gun that we could use with a little bit of anything we want. It's not going to be an impression gun this time. This gun is not built for any sort of kit or impression. It's going to be a, as the Japanese call it, unknown operator build. And it's going to be kind of flavored in that NSW, SAS, L119A1-ish look. But it's not going to be that because a purist will call you out immediately because there's parts on here that just don't jive. But we're going to kind of make it look that way-ish because that kind of gun looks cool. So let's jump right into it. And as always, first thing I always want is a foregrip. So let's go ahead and grab that and put it on. All right, the foregrip's installed. And what I went with is a MOE RVG grip. It is a FDE grip and it looks awesome on the gun. I really like these grips. I like how they feel, I like how they hold. Could have gone with an angled. Angles are all right, but I just kind of like these grips. So I went with that. If I wanted to stick with a really old school aesthetic, I could have gone with a nice armament grip. They're very easy to install. They're also just all over the place. Lots of replicas out there, lots of real ones, but I really like these. They do make replicas of these, but if you're in the US, I don't see a reason to get a replica because these are easy to get and they're not very expensive and they're just great. So next thing I need, in my opinion, for me, is a sling. I need a way to keep this on my body. So I noticed on the buttstock, I have a way to use a QD, and on the front, I don't. So I need a way to put a QD on there. So I decided to go with a Magpul Qd point, and that's what we're going to install next. All right, Magpul Qd is installed. So this is what it looks like. So this is the Magpul Qd point I went with right there. It's a Picatinny rail version, and I have it like this because the orientation I want, and I like a little further back. That's just a personal preference. I could also ride it all the way front, but if I did that, it would get in the way of the grip and how I like to run my grip, so I run a little further back. Next thing I know I'm going to need is a sling, and I'm going to go with a sling that I know can run QDs, and I've used in the past, so let's go ahead and put that on. All right, so now we got a sling on the gun. Now we have a way of keeping the gun to our body. I kind of went with the cost-effective theme. Some of the stuff in here may not be too expensive, some might be some people are, that's not that cost-effective, but I went with that with this, so I went with the Krydex Ranger Green 2-point. I already had this, and it was on another gun, and I decided to take it off because I went with a different sling. But if I was buying a new sling for this build, Krydex would have been a good choice because they are not very expensive. They are repros of the Faro sling. Faro makes a magnificent sling and a great product. But if you just can't afford a Faro sling, Krydex is a good option because it is a nice sling for what it is. So got my sling, I've got my front grip, so now I am skirmishable. They just kind of back the train up a little bit. So the gun itself does come with a rear sight right out of the box. So if I was going to run that rear sight, I would have sights, I would have irons, and I'd be just fine. I'm not running it on this gun right now because I don't particularly care for it, and I don't need it because I'm going to put an optic on here immediately anyway. So the next thing I'm going to go with is an optic. The field I play at, they don't really identify players with armbands or anything like that, so you just kind of have to remember who's playing on your team. So I really like running a magnified optic of some type so I can still see who I'm shooting at and avoid the embarrassing blue on blues that I've done in the past a few times because I forgot who was on my team, and then they were walking back to spawn but not walking like they were dead, and I shot them thinking I was being sneaky. So Magnified Optics became a go for me there. So that's what we're going to go with next, is an optic. All right, so what we went with is a 4-power Trijicon Acog replica optic with iron sights built into it. As I said at the beginning of this video, was kind of going with a little flavor of old and new, so I did go with an older style Trijicon 4 power, not with the built-in, tritium looking, the little strip here, so it'll, give me a not magnified, Jesus, a lit up reticle, yeah, Jesus, man, I can't talk today, but it's just a regular, just black reticle in there, so there's no illuminated. Wow, English language. Who would have thunk it? But the illuminated reticle is not in this. But I like the aesthetic of this optic. It's a little older, and like I said at the beginning, if I wanted this to kind of try to make this resemble an L119A1, this might be a better choice in Acog, because this is very similar to an Acog like the British did use at one point. So now I'm going for functionality still, and if I needed to take this gun, and it's a nice short gun, and I wanted to take it to one of the indoor fields that are in the local area to play, I'm going to need a light. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, so what I ended up going with, I dug into my parts bin, and I grabbed a Surefire scout light that I had from another build on a gun that died on me, and I never got to do the build review. And this is a Surefire scout light. I actually reviewed this light. I'll link to the description. In the description below, I'll link to the review. Good light. I really like it. I think they're great replicas. I know people... There's a lot of like controversy sometimes about replica stuff. I don't really care. I have real Surefires. I've got replica Surefires. I kind of prefer using replicas on my toys versus real shit. It's just a preference. But they are good lights for what they are. They're actually really good for what they are. It's kind of surprising. This one surprised me that it even came with Surefire trades. I didn't care about that, but it was kind of cool, so I left them on. This is a very powerful light for what it is, and what I have also on here is a black Ranger band, and that's to kind of help control this piece here, which I'm about to show you. And that is my pressure pad. So that holds on my pressure pad, and I have a small half Knights Armament rail piece that I have left over from one of my deployments. It was just in like some of my gear bags. I found it and I was like, oh shit, okay, cool. And I threw that on there. So it's a way for me to do that on there without taping it. Go blah, blah, blah. Good to go. I like it. I can kind of maneuver it around and change its position more readily per my preference, without having to tape, untape, and stuff like that. So I kind of like that. So now we got a light on, so I can use this at indoor games or even at the normal field, because once you get into the underbrush in the woods, it can get a little dark at times, and now you have a light. Lights are useful. Lights are great. I love them. Do need to probably look into getting a light cap for this from 100 Concepts. I did a review to those guys. Fucking awesome. If you aren't aware of them, check them out. So now I'm moving on to more aesthetic items that serve no fucking purpose, but just make the gun look cool. So the next piece I decided I wanted to add, just for the sheer LARP of it all and the aesthetic, was a PEC, and I decided to go with an older style PEC. All right, so I got the PEC installed. It is a PEC 2 Alpha style PEC. It is actually off of another build. I moved on to a different PEC for that build, so I threw it in a box, dug around, was like, oh, that PEC would look pretty sick on here. It's kind of got that bridge of old and new, makes the gun just look really neat, and I put it onto this build here. It's non-functional now. It used to be a functional PEC 2. There are plenty of functional PEC 2s now you can find on AliExpress for pretty cheap, so that is kind of neat. These used to be pretty hard to find niche items, not so much nowadays. The main reason I decided to go with this versus like a PEC 15 or a D-ball or something like that is I just wanted that older look. I wanted that old and new kind of vibe on this build. So the next thing I decided to go with, that was not really a functional thing, but just kind of gave it that that maximum LARP, was a suppressor. So what I ended up getting was a night style faux suppressor in flat dark earth. completely not functional or necessary. It just makes the gun look fucking cool. And originally I got it to hide the orange flash hider before I painted the gun. I bought it when I bought the gun, and I just didn't like the orange flash hider, and I wanted something to kind of not give my position away when I was using the gun originally. And it just makes the CQBRs look neat. It does add some extra length, kind of negates the whole point of having a short-barreled rifle if you now turn it into a basically standard M4 length rifle, but it still looks cool. And half the part of playing airsoft is looking fucking cool. So the last bit of building I wanted to do on this was actually kind of functional, and still LARPy, but functional for me, is I wanted to add something to this pistol grip. And what I ended up doing was adding some just parachute rubber bands to it. All my COD guys out there are like, oh shit, I recognize that. And yeah, so what it is these are just, oh Jesus, dropping the gun over here. These are parachutist rubber bands. These are rubber bands they use on parachutes. And what they do for me is they add just some good dexterity, good rubber grip when I'm wearing gloves, if it gets a little wet, and just adds just a little bit of extra girth to the grip. I like the Magpul Qd grips versus the A2 personally, and these just kind of help add a little extra oomph to the size of the grip, and that's why I like it. And it makes it a little more tacky. So if I'm not wearing gloves, it just adds that. But even if I'm wearing gloves, it adds a little something, something. One more little just extra tidbit. So I also love using G&G magazines, mid caps. They're the metal GI styles, and I prefer these over the Lancer mag that came with this. There's another magazine I do plan on getting. They are a Pmag Style Mag. I saw them at the local field. One of the guys I was playing with who was using them. I don't remember the name at the moment, but I will try to get that information. Once I get my hands on a few, I'm going to do a review. They were pretty great, and they fed really good too. But these are hands down my favorite mid-cap magazine. I did a review on these. I will link that below. But I think this finishes out the aesthetic quite well. And this was a really fun gun to build. All in all, I got lucky. Most of these parts were already in my parts bin. But if you were to buy all of these new to take this Lancer and build it out the way I did, you could still come out on top comparatively to buying a quote-unquote cost-effective metal gun. It is a polymer gun, but for the price of this gun as an entry-level gun, with buying the Acog and the MOE RVG, the Replica Surefire, a pack, the mock suppressor, the Sling, and the Sling point, you could still come out for the same price as just a stock base metal AEG. And these guns are pretty good. So all in all, I still say the Lancers are a good investment for what they are. And you can come out looking like this instead of just having a stock gun. So take it for what it's worth. I hope you enjoyed this build the gun video. It's a little long. We're at like 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes. If you made it this far into the build and into the video, you are a fucking trooper and you are my hero. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. As always, guys, and maybe one or two gals that are out there, get out there. Build some cool guns. LARP hard. We need more people in the hobby. This is a really fun game. It is a wonderful way to kind of get your gun porn on without necessarily breaking the bank. And it's also a great way to train with the same kind of platforms you might own with real guns, and do it a little inexpensively. So ballistics aren't exactly the same, but the shapes and feels are kind of the similar. I mean, you can get a lot of the similarities. You lose a little bit with the recoil, and you lose a little bit with some of the tactile sense, but you can get way more realistic reps in as far as like one-on-one and force on force, and that's pretty cool. So I'm going to stop before I get on a tangent. As always, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate all of you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I got a couple more builds coming up. I'm hoping I got one more for sure. It won't be like this one, just so you guys know. It won't be a ground up to build up because it's just too complicated, because I had to actually physically alter the gun so extensively in areas and install parts that I can't uninstall them to reinstall them efficiently enough to do a build like this. So I'm just going to explain it. But I'm hoping to have 2 more of these before the calendar year. So thank you so much for watching. As I already said, you guys are great. Take care. See you in the next one. LARP hard.